His name is John C.
Hey guys, in this video I'm going to be sharing the strongest Battlegrounds PvP build that I've ever come up with on my channel. This build is extremely strong and it's for the Wizard class. I've actually taken the time to farm up all of the new Inferno 8 Essence for the Wizard, as you can see, and I've been testing all of them, and they're actually extremely powerful, especially this new offhand Essence for the Ice Armor, which makes you invisible. From my testing, this one is really crazy, especially when paired with the Slow Time Helmet Essence, which you guys know I like to feature a lot on my channel, which is the Terminus Facade, which lets you spam skills. So this build isn't necessarily going to be the easiest build to play, but once you actually take the time to practice with it and master it, it's going to reward you with immense power. So let's jump straight in and go ahead and look over the skills. So for the skills, I'm using Slow Time, which is key for this build, as it's going to let you spam your skills. Then I'm using Ice Armor for the invisibility. I'm using Lightning Nova to give us a bit of extra damage. And then finally, I'm using Meteor, which you guys will see. Meteor is kind of one of the MVPs for this build, and it does a crazy amount of damage, and it has a crazy range, which I'll be showing in this video. And then for the primary attack, I decided to use Magic Missile, simply because this has a bit more range than the Electrocute, and it's a lot safer to be cast from a distance. With this build, we won't be spamming primary attack all the time, but we do have the opportunity to kind of weave in a few primary attacks here and there to get a bit more damage. So let's go ahead and talk about the essence that I'm using. So I'm actually going to be using 4 new Inferno 8 Essence in this build. Let's go ahead and start off with the helmet. So with the helmet, this is Terminus Facade. It isn't very clear right now because I'm using an ancient helmet, but this is the same effect that you guys all know if you've seen my videos before. So this lets you basically spam your skills, and every time you press a skill, it's going to reset the cooldown of your other skills. Really key essence to use for this build, as this will allow you to keep resetting the invisibility for your Ice Armor. For the chest essence, I've decided to use Coat of the Astrum. So this essence recently got nerfed, but it's still very good, and it also has the benefit of having a very high range and also able to strike multiple enemies. So for now, I'm still be using this one. There might be something better to use here, but I think from my testing so far, this is the best one to use. Next, for the shoulders, I'm using the Gravity Well, and this is one of the new essence for Meteor, and it reads that Meteor pulls in nearby enemies at the location that it deals damage, triggering no more than once every 6 seconds. I found that the effect for this is pretty nice, especially in PvP. If you don't have this essence, then you can definitely use a different essence for Meteor. I've been experimenting and I found that the Staggerville Omen works just fine. So this is the one for Meteor that gives you 19% increased damage, and it also gives you Meteor cooldown on the Awakening, which is very nice. So I've kind of been flip-flopping between these two, but for now, just because this is the new essence, I've decided to stick with this one, and I found the effect is pretty decent. Next, for the pants essence, this is a key essence to use, the Binding Forces. This is an incredibly powerful essence in my opinion, and is what makes the build work. So this reads that Meteor empowers you, during which you call huge meteors to fall at the target location, and Meteor deals increased damage. And I'll quickly demonstrate how this works, but before that, let's quickly look at the skills here, just to read further what this does. So it says, Meteor empowers you for 6 seconds, during which you call huge meteors to fall at target locations, dealing a huge amount of damage. And the other thing is that the damage of the next meteor within 3 seconds is increased by 20% up to a maximum of 60%. So this is huge. And then finally, if this wasn't enough, it reads that while empowered in Battlegrounds, your field of vision will increase and meteor damage will be increased. As far as I know, this is one of the few essences in the game which increases your field of vision. The other one which comes to memory is the Demon Hunter Shadow Sight, which kind of does the same thing, but what makes this even more powerful is that it also increases the range of your meteor. So let's just have a quick demonstration of the range here. I'm going to stand all the way here, so you're going to press Meteor once, and this is going to empower you, as you can see, and you can actually see how far I'm able to hit the dummy here. You can see even I'm going to move further away, and this is still hitting the dummy from all the way over here, which is completely crazy. And right now, since I'm playing PvE, the kind of FOV isn't zooming out, but if you play BGs, it's going to zoom out even further, which is completely crazy. But as you can see, even without pressing slow time, I'm able to spam this skill every second. I found that in BGs, this effect is extremely strong because you can actually hit enemies behind the choke points, and you can get a few kills like that. And even when they go back in through the checkpoint to heal, usually they know the distance that they need to stay at to be safe. But with this Meteor, this is one of the few skills that can hit enemies from so far away. So they're kind of taken aback by how far you can hit them, and you end up killing them just by surprise since they're not used to this essence. So this essence is extremely powerful, and I would definitely recommend you guys to try out this Pants essence once you find it. So moving on now to talk about the next few essences I'm using. This is kind of classic. I've gone for the Thunderbird's Bite just to get a bit more Lightning Nova damage, and it also reduces the cooldown of Lightning Nova to allow you to have the higher uptime to be able to spam it. And then for the next essence, I went for the Trifling Piffle, which, as you guys know, it applies more Lightning Novas when you hit a shocked enemy. And the shock in this build is going to be coming from the Skybreaker set, which I'll talk about shortly. And then for the final few essence here, I'm also using two new Inferno 8 essence, so the Ossified Chromatera, and this is an essence for slow time, which is very, very powerful. It reads that slow time increases the skill damage by 22.8% for 3 seconds, and this is going to increase the skill damage of both your Meteor and also your Lightning Nova, so this is really, really good, and I believe that this essence will also be very useful in PvE. And then moving on for the last essence, like I said, this is the MVP of the build. This is what brings it all together. And this is the essence for Ice Armor, which reads that it grants you invisibility, only revealing you if an enemy gets close. So let's also take a deeper dive just to look at this one. So it reads that Ice Armor grants you invisibility for 2 seconds, only revealing you if the enemies get close. So how this works is that it lasts for 2 seconds, but obviously with beneficial effect duration, it can last a little bit longer, but we don't have to worry about that because the spam build is going to allow us to keep refreshing it. So how it works is that if you press it once, you can see this gray circle here. And once enemies get within this gray circle, they can actually see you. But the downside is that even while you're invisible, I believe that they can see you on the minimap, and you also still take damage. Invisibility does not mean invincibility. You will still take damage from AoE attacks, and you'll still take damage from dots. So you have to be very careful and keep your range. And this is why Meteor works very well, because it's a skill that allows you to stay at such a huge range while still being able to do damage. And then with the Lightning Nova, it will allow you to hit enemies even without aiming them. It kind of covers a huge amount on the screen. So this is why I feel like Lightning Nova is very powerful for this build. But talking more about this effect here, you have to be very careful with positioning your character, because like I said, you don't want them to come within this circle here. So a lot of times in BGs, you'll see me kind of hug walls, because basically it makes the area of the circle half as much, and it also, the enemies don't expect you to be kind of on the edge of the map all the time. So this will take a bit of practice to get used to, but once you get used to the positioning of this build, it's an absolute powerhouse. Another thing I would say is that you don't really want to be following your teammates when playing this build, because a lot of the time the AoE effects your enemies will be trying to hit, or your teammates, you might get hit in the crossfire. So always keep your distance within reason, because like I said, Lightning Nova doesn't have infinite distance, and you all have to be kind of close range, and especially now with the nerfs, you do want to be a bit closer just to get the most amount of damage, but you'll find the balance once you are actually able to practice the build a bit more. Let's move on now to talk about the sets that I'm using. So like I said, I've gone for 2 pieces of Skybreaker. This has been nerfed slightly, but it's still very good, and it works very well with the Trifling Piffle offhand to apply more of the Lightning Novas. Then I'm using 2 pieces of Vithus. This is kind of must-have, and it's going to allow you to have higher beneficial effect duration and also keep 100% uptime of slow time. So this is a must-have. And then finally, I've decided to go for 4 pieces of Feasting Barons. I've been playing around with this a bit. I found that this works very, very well. But if you don't have this, you could honestly change it for something else. Maybe like 4-piece Grace would work fine. 4-piece Banquet if you have it. Just go for what you have. Next, let's talk about the legendary gems that I'm using. So there's a few options here, but my favorite to use are always Bloodsoaked Jade, Roiling Consequence, Colossus Engine, and also the Blood Flow. If you have all 4 of these gems, then you're going to be good to go. These gems are completely crazy. Obviously, they are 5-star gems, so I will be giving a few more kind of options for you guys to use if you don't have these. But another one which is good to use is also the Bottled Hope if you have it. So other than that, I'm using a few 2-star gems as well, which is Pain Clasp at rank 10 and also Spectre Glass at rank 8. This works very well, especially with the Feasting Barons pack. And then finally, I've gone for Seeping Bile just because I have this ranked up to rank 9. Honestly, this can be replaced to something else. Maybe like Fervent Fang or Morn Skull would be absolutely fine. Or even the 1-star gems, which work very well with this build that I've showcased in my PvE variant, which are the Entropic Well and also the Surging Sea. Let's move on to talk about the secondary stats because I believe that this is very important. So the most important secondary stat for this build is Armor Pen by far. Everything else is honestly not that important. Armor Pen is extremely good with this build because if you play it correctly, you're going to be invisible. Obviously, armor is very important in other builds, but for this build, I would highly recommend Armor Pen. I've actually reset my Ibenfart Sanctum just to get even more Armor Pen, and I had this previously on Potency, but I decided to reset this, and I've got a level 44 Armor Pen just to get the most out of this. You guys will be able to see that my gems aren't super high. I mean, I've got a few rank 8s here, but they're mostly going to be rank 7 Armor Pen, as you can see. So it's really important that you go for 2 blue rings as well and try and maximize your Armor Pen rolls. The only armor gem that I have is a rank 8 armor gem, which is why my armor is kind of low with this build, but that's absolutely fine. Once you get used to the build, the Armor Pen is going to kind of carry you through. And next, for the yellow gems, I would probably recommend you to go more for resistance than potency. Right now, I have it set up for potency, and it's okay. But the issue is that if you face a lot of like Crusaders, then you're going to end up getting stunned by the Judgment effect, and then you're going to be stuck in the stun for a really long time, and you won't be able to reapply your invisibility. So I'd probably recommend you to go more for resistance. It's just that I don't have too many resistance gems, but I might be splitting up the gems and trying to kind of re-roll more into resistance. But like I said, the most important one you want to go for is by far Armor Pen. Let's go over the Paragon tree choice because I believe that is very important with this build. So I've actually gone for the Slinger tree setup for most of the games that I play. This might be a controversial choice because you will be extremely squishy playing with a build like this, but it does give you a very high damage. So this is the one that you want to go for, but I actually do switch it out to the Gladiator setup, which kind of looks like this. If I know that I'm in a high resonance match and it's mostly whales and I have to play more of a support role, then the cheat death is extremely useful, and I end up going for this one here. But for most matches, I really do like the Slinger tree setup. What I would not recommend you guys is actually to play with the Brawler tree. Do not play with this tree because this makes you have more size, and once you have more size, the circle of the range of this ice armor actually gets bigger, so I would not recommend you to play with Brawler. And this is actually another reason why I've gone for the Attacker Warband Room rather than the Protector Warband Room. This might also be another controversial choice, but I do believe that the Attacker Room is probably the correct choice here, and it's the choice that I've been having the best results with. So lastly, for the Paragon tree, I believe that the MVP legendary skill, this one is by far the best one in my opinion. The Soul Harvester for this build. This is going to give you the shield when you kill enemies. Because you're killing enemies at such a high rate, you're always going to get the shield, and this shield has saved me more times than I could count. And honestly, it's by far the best choice here. For the cursed properties, I've gone for 6 pieces of Atrophied and 2 pieces of Lashed. Another one that you could also go for is Wired. That one is also very good. And then let's also talk about the magic attributes. So the most important magic attribute to use is slow time. You want to have at least 1 or 2 pieces of this. It's really important that you test that you have 100% slow time uptime. So if you check my skill right now, it seems like I have very high uptime of slow time. But this is because right now I'm in PvE, so this effect is not strifed, so you can see that I'm able to spam this again. But the best way to test this, to see the minimum amount of pieces you need for this Eternal, is actually to go to the Battlegrounds training area, and I'll quickly demonstrate this because I believe it's very, very important so that you can min-max this build. So you want to be trying out at least 1 piece, and then always keep increasing it from there. To see how many pieces that you need. So the reason why I've come to this area is because, as you can see here, the Strife effect is active. So if I just take a look at some of my stats here, for example, like cooldown, you can see that my cooldown is very low compared to the unstrifed value. You can see even I have like OTH runes here with 4% cooldown here, and also 3% cooldown rolls on all of my gear. but obviously the cooldown roll is Strife. The only cooldown roll which isn't Strife, as far as I understand, is the Bottled Hope cooldown effect, so this is why Bottled Hope is one of the best gems to use for this build. But the important thing to test is the slow time eternal attribute, how many pieces you need. So the way to do that is just simply to press slow time and see that if you keep spamming it like this, will it be able to kind of refresh before it runs out. As you can see, in my case, I'm able to press it again just about before it runs out. So in my case, I've had to use 2 pieces of slow time eternal attribute. You don't want to go too far into this. In most cases, 2 pieces is going to be enough, especially if you've got enough cooldown, but depending on your cooldown and your beneficial effect duration, you might need more pieces of this. So let's quickly exit this area here, and we can also talk about some of the other eternal attributes that I'm using. So I've also gone for the Meteor eternal attribute. I've got 2 pieces of this. Honestly, the more pieces you can get, the better. This is going to give you increased damage 8% for every piece that you have rolled. And I've also gone for some of the Lightning Nova for extra attack speed. This one isn't really required for this build, to be honest, as much as it is required for PvE. So the most important ones to use are the Meteor and also the slow time effect. And the other attribute that's really important is obviously the crit chance. Crit chance is extremely important because, like I said, this build is an armor pen based build, and the more crit chance that you have, the more effect of the critical hit damage. That's about everything that I wanted to go over for this build. I've tried to be as thorough as I can. Just before we move on to show the gameplay, I do want to show some variations for this build, which will be extremely good. So for Battlegrounds, I would say this variation, Nova PvP, which is with the Coat of Astrum, is probably the most strong build to use, but you could honestly use a different build. If you're always facing whales, then you could use a build with Arcane Wind. So the only difference here is that I've gone for Arcane Wind Thistlebloom, and I've also gone for the Blood of the Wind offhand, and we're using this instead of the Lightning Nova, so we don't have to use these Lightning Nova Essence. So this means that we can also replace the Chest Essence. So for the Chest Essence here, I've gone for the Meteor Chest Essence, which gives you critical hit chance 9.5% for 3 seconds, and this stacks up to 3 times. You're going to have this effect capped at the maximum, so this build works very, very well, and it's also worth trying. The only thing I don't really like about this build is it feels a bit more static, because you have to be kind of still when you press your Thistlebloom. But if you can get used to this playstyle, then this is a very good build to use. This kind of reminds me of a build that I used before with my Arcane Wind, which was the Infinite Freeze. This obviously doesn't have the freeze effect, but it's still an extremely good build. The last variation that I want to go over is the Teleport variation. Honestly, I haven't tested this one too much, but I think that this will be most useful in modes like Tower PvP, just because you need a bit more movement and mobility, and the teleport spam is incredibly good there. So unfortunately, because the Meteor is on a Pants Essence, we've kind of had to take Meteor out of this build and go back to teleport. So this is just the classic teleport shield, and also the teleport knockup, which you guys will be familiar with. It's kind of the current meta for the wizard, and it's what people have been playing. It's the kind of the most played build to use, but with this build, we've obviously gone for the Ice Armor rather than Arcane Wind. It's basically the same build, but with the Ice Armor and also the new Slow Time main hand. So with this build, the only changes I've made is also the set pieces. Rather than 4 pieces of Baron, you want to go for 4 pieces of Gloom, since we're using a dash in this build. But that's pretty much everything that I wanted to go over in this video, guys. I would highly recommend you guys try out this build once you get your hands on the new Essence. The key ones to get are the Pants Essence and the Offhand Essence for Ice Armor. You could honestly replace both of these. I'm actually going to be playing this build for a few more days just to get Legend rank, and I might even push this build even further just to see how many wins we can get. So I will definitely be streaming this build on my channel on YouTube. So if you don't want to miss out, be sure to subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications. I've also got my Discord group, so if you do want to join my Discord, the link is going to be in the description, and you can ask me questions about the build there. For now, I'm going to be signing off, and I hope you guys enjoy the gameplay.